All right. Hey, guys. My name is Anthony Bandiero, attorney and senior legal instructor for Blue to Gold Law Enforcement Training, bringing another Search and Seizure show. We just got done recording a webinar called Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, where I talked to officers for about an hour or so about all the ways they can search a mobile conveyance. So we may have some questions from there. We still have a lot of our audience here, but this is an opportunity where I answer your questions from the United States. And also, the way this is going to work for those people who are attending live here, if you have a question for me, ask it. But I really want you to ask it on the microphone. So this is almost like a call-in show. So if you don't need a camera, don't worry. I can't see you. You can be in your patrol car. You can be in your pajamas. No problem. You can have a glass of wine or a Jim Beam right next to your desk. Nobody's going to see it. But if you have a microphone, it'll just say, hey, I have a question. I'll turn on your mic with your permission. You'll see a button there that you have to consent to, and then we can just talk out the scenario. So who has a question? Also, the cool thing is if you have a question, you ask it live, you'll get one of our free search and seizure books. All right? All right. Jose. All right, my man. Let's bring Jose on.
How are you, sir?
Hey, how are you, man?
Doing well, doing well. Awesome class, by the way. It's like my fourth one.
Man, I appreciate you, man. Now, remind me, because it all blends together with what state you're from. What state are you in?
We're from Connecticut.
Oh, man, you might stump me a little bit because Connecticut is a very difficult state.
It is. I sent you earlier in the last class, the one we just finished, how we don't have any more power to ask for consent. It has to be provided by the person without us to listen it.
So they can tell you, hey, if you want to search my car, you can search my car. That type of thing?
Yes. Yeah, the person has to be like, hey, I just want you guys to search my car.
Wow.
Which that's never going to happen. But
no.
So I just wanted to ask, because I know I mentioned this prior, but I wanted to, if you could provide, what would be a lawful search incident to a lawful arrest in a motor vehicle? So if I in the state of Connecticut, operating a motor vehicle for a suspended registration or a suspended driver's license, it's a summons arrest or it's an actual arrest. Can we search the vehicle due to that lawful arrest for weapons or anything that might harm the officer?
Okay, so let me ask you this before I answer your question. So when you say a summons arrest, are they being transported somewhere?
We could, if the person has, if we run this search, we run a prior history and the person has any failure to appear in court, then we'll set a bond and we'll transport him back to the police department.
Okay, so let's presume that they're not going to get transported. Okay, what's going to happen to that car?
It gets towed, but we don't have inventory search allowed at their police department.
Yep. Okay. So we have a problem. So here's the deal. So per Gantt, right, under the Fourth Amendment, the baseline rules here are this. And Kyle, you're up next. So you can search a vehicle. Well, look, Gantt does not handle inventory. So inventories are out in Connecticut, right? So we don't have an inventory. The next thing, let's look at Gantt. You can search a vehicle under two conditions. Number one is they are unrestrained, arrested near the vehicle at the time of the search. So you're not going to have that issue here. When I say arrest, I don't mean like they're getting a citation. And it's not what I mean. It's what the court means. It's not that they're just getting a citation. If that was the case, everybody getting a speeding ticket gets their car searched, right? Okay. Here, when the court says unrestrained and under arrest, they mean that they're actually in custody. Like they're going to go, the cop is actually going to take their person to the police station or to a jail. So you don't have that here if the car is not being towed. I'm sorry, if the car, even if it's being towed, but the guy's not going to jail, right? But even if the guy is going to jail, you still have a problem because the guy is going to be in handcuffs. And you're not going to, he's going to be secured. So you're still not going to have a Gantt style search. You're not going to have that type of search there either, right?
Right.
The next thing is that do you have reason to believe that offense-related evidence is inside that car? Well, if the guy is being arrested for no license and no insurance or no registration, no, there's no evidence that we're really looking for. We don't need to search that car to prove our case. The case is already proved. We don't need his old registration. And if he doesn't have a license, then we already told you we just use contemporary and normal rules to handle that, resolve that issue. We can't identify him, false ID or whatever. If it's false ID, you might have probable cause. But the answer to your question, the answer is no. So
Okay.
Either the car is being towed away, which you can't inventory it, or it's going to be driven away because he has no license and his wife is going to drive the car away. It can't be searched. So the answer is no.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
You're 100%, man. And I told you what to do, right? So email richard@bluetogold.com.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
For your book. And Rick, just take a just make a list of who's getting these books here. Kyle is up next.
Can you hear me all right?
Loud and clear. What's up, my friend?
All right, so I work in Idaho,
Okay.
and my question is in regards to consent. So a few years back, there was a ruling, we call it the Clark issue, or a Clark case, and any misdemeanor outside of our presence, we can't arrest for. So we've run into DUIs where we get to a crash, someone's crashed their car, they're obviously DUI, and then we're able to run through the tests, SFSTs, and then it comes to whether or not we need to do a blood draw or a breathalyzer. So a lot of times they're high, so it's going to be a blood draw.
Yep.
Now, where we've run into problems is we get consent to transport this individual to where we need to go, and our prosecutors are saying, well, that becomes a de facto arrest even if he consents to it. And I'm not even finding anything that would really validate what they're saying.
No, negative. No, I'm positive on this one. That is not a de facto arrest. People, and I'm pretty familiar with Idaho case law too, because you guys are, for the most part, you guys. By the way, I'm moving to Idaho, just so you know.
Oh, good, nice.
Yeah, I'm moving to Coeur d'Alene. So,
okay, nice.
yeah. But the point is that Idaho has some screwy stuff. This is one of when they threw out the whole in your presence, or they required in your presence for any arrest, and it gets screwy, and it's the dog issue and so forth. But the point is, your prosecutor unfortunately is incorrect. You can absolutely consent to take a ride. It happens all the time with interviews. I mean,
Yeah.
you got a person who isn't, let's say a homeless person, and in Boise, and they are suspected of committing a sexual assault. They don't have a car, and you're not going to, you don't want them riding their bicycle to the police station. So you say, hey, can I give you a ride? And you do a, can we talk about this? And the guy says yes. Well, he can do that. So why can't he? In other words, this is the same legal situation. So the answer is that is valid consent. And if you want me to talk, if you want me to talk to your prosecutor, or you want me to give him case law on this, I mean, this is what I do for a living, so I have cases on it. But the point is, that's fine.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah, email richard@bluetogold.com. We have a book on for Idaho Search and Seizure.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you.
You're 100% welcome. All right, who is next? Jim.
All right, can you hear me, Anthony?
Hey, bud, I can. Yep.
Hey, good afternoon. So what I want to talk about was how do we get when, say, like narcotics calls and they say, hey, we want to do a pretext stop on a car, and they call up patrol, and so we're looking for a violation, usually something small. We have to figure out something like a lane change. How do we get from making that stop to getting that search? Because they know why they want to search it, but at the same time, we can't communicate that to the driver.
Correct. So what state are you in?
Missouri.
Okay, so good. So the rules, so look, I know your rules. So here's the first thing. So this is called a wall stop or a whisper stop, right? There's a wall between your narcotics detectives or DEA and that stop, right? If everything goes right, this is just for everybody who's watching this, right? If everything goes right, the driver, the passengers will never know what your primary motive was. This is called a pretext stop, and it's a wall stop, but it's a pretext stop because you don't really give two craps about their 5 miles per hour over, quite frankly. If it wasn't for the other motive, you would just let them go or just ignore it. Okay. So now it's a great question because I love to say in my advanced traffic stops class, okay, pretext is one thing. Okay, scope is another. You can have, as long as it's not a pretext for racial profiling, ethnicity, national origin, and so forth, you can have whatever you want in your mind. It's like, what? I think all cars that are red are bad drivers. Drivers that drive red cars are bad drivers. I'm going to look for a reason to stop them. That's constitutional, right? As long as the reason for the stop is legit. So the problem, though, is if you stop somebody for something minor, what is that mission of the stop? If you stop them for if a seatbelt offense is a primary offense, or you stop them because they have no front license plate, you stop them because they're 5 over, you don't get a free drug, gun, stolen property investigation with every pretext. And that's going to be the issue here. So the next thing is I'm going to tell you the 4 ways, okay? The 4 ways to pursue your pretexts or your hunches without violating people's rights in most states. Now, these rules are a little different in New Mexico, New Jersey, Washington, are strict states, right? Okay. Alaska is a strict state. So the first way is called consent. You are absolutely allowed, okay, in Missouri to ask for consent to search their car. Now, the problem is going to be are you taking a lot of time to gain that consent? You know what I'm saying? Like there is no case out there under the 4th Amendment, okay, that says that you have to have reasonable suspicion to ask for consent. Again, I know my New Jersey people are like, well, that's not true in New Jersey because it's a New Jersey thing, not a 4th Amendment thing. So you can ask for consent, but I do caution cops on selling it. You know what I'm talking about, Jim? Like, it's like, hey, can I search your car? No, you cannot. Well, why wouldn't you let me search it? It'd be real quick, and just kind of wasting a lot of time with that issue. And in the meantime, what is happening with that traffic stop? Time is ticking. Right. So asking for it is one way, but you're going to have a problem if they don't immediately say yes. If they don't say yes, you got to move on. The next thing is called unavoidable downtime. Unavoidable downtime typically occurs during background checks, right? Checking a driver or their passenger for once. Sometimes that can take a minute or so, whatever, right? At this point, you can do other things that are unrelated because as long as you're legitimately waiting for the information that will help determine your course of events, which it should, right? If they're a wanted person, then you're probably not going to write them a ticket. You're going to arrest them. But the point is, while you're waiting for that dispatch to return, you can ask them unrelated questions. You can do a drug investigation. Hey, have you ever been what's your why are you in this neighborhood, right? Type stuff. Why did you, whatever your drug questions are. I don't want to make them up on the fly. So that makes sense. So we have consent, we have unavoidable downtime. So far, so good. But once that check comes back and you have no reasonable suspicion yet, what do you have to do? Get back to the stop, right? The third one is multitasking. This one you've seen a million times, Jim, on TV, or your interdiction guys. When an interdiction officer wants to pursue their hunch, they ask the person to get out of the car, sit in their passenger seat, and what are they doing while they're typing? Asking a bunch of unrelated questions. What brought you to Denver? Why did you rent the car one way? Why is it a one-way rent-a-car? Why do you think it's cheaper to fly back and not drive back? All these questions which build up reasonable suspicion, right? Then once you have reasonable suspicion, then you kind of you get the dog and so forth. The final one, and it's the best. You ready for it? You sitting down? Is backup officer. The backup officer, if you have a narc that wants you to pretext a stop, make a wall stop, you really should try to get 2 people on that stop. One officer runs the stop. He or she does the background, wants check, writing that warning, ticket, whatever. The other officer is trying their best to plain view stuff, smells, asking those questions, hey, getting, into their background and so forth, and trying to build that reasonable suspicion. That is the way to do it. Those are your 4 ways during a traffic stop. If you do not have one of those 4 ways, if you cannot successfully get reasonable suspicion with those 4 ways, then the best one is backup officer, then the only thing left to do is the Trooper 2-step. The Trooper 2-step means that you kick the guy loose, you give him all his paperwork back, and then while he's kind of feels free to leave, you ask him, hey, can I ask you some more questions? But if you don't have, and then the canine, by the way, somebody said the canine, you can do a free air sniff in Missouri without reasonable suspicion, but the one thing that cannot occur is extending that traffic stop to bring that canine to the stop.
Right.
Which means that you probably should have that canine in tow when you light him up. That's ideally what would happen. Then while you're writing his ticket, the canine is deployed around the car.
Awesome. Thank you.
I hope that answers your question. Okay. Jim, email richard@bluetogold.com and he will send you the Missouri Search and Seizure book. Okay, so all right, let me answer some questions real quick that were sent to me by email. Let me just kind of go over here. Okay, so this one is an officer at the airport. Let's just see what he has to say. He's also from Missouri, and he says, "What general rules apply to searching bags, persons, and vehicles at airports? We search bags that are left unattended, but we do have, baggage screening at, TSA and so forth." Let me just tell you what the rules are. The rules are the rules that apply to all cops. Officers at the airport assigned to the airport do not, generally speaking, get any extra power to search bags that other cops outside the airport don't have or and so forth. So the unattended bag issue is called abandonment, right? Do you have facts or circumstances that to lead you to believe that bag has been abandoned? If the answer is yes, you can search it under abandonment. But if you see the guy leaving his bag on a chair and running to the bathroom just across the way there, that's not abandonment, and you cannot search that bag under any kind of rules and so forth. Okay, there is no law that will let you search that. There's no exigency there. The special needs doctrine does not apply. Just so you know, I just did a webinar recently on, right? Didn't I do a webinar, Rick, on airports and border searches? I think it was recent. And I described how TSA gets their authority to search people's bags, but they have the authority, you don't. So there's the answer there.
So it's actually more of a scenario question, but I think it goes hand in hand with search for me.
And Bryce, what state are you in?
Mississippi.
Nice. Okay, what you got?
Okay, so we had an incident. It was allegedly a burglary in progress. Arrived on scene. People were standing outside, not actively burglarizing the house. Had CID on the way. The K-9 was not deployed for the alleged burglary in progress, but she asked for consent to search the vehicle. They told her no. She got the dog out, searched the vehicle anyways, found felony dope within the vehicle. They didn't arrest them for burglary, but they arrested them for dope. I feel like that's not legal because it was private property. They did not give her consent. There was not plain view, and there was nothing to do with illegal narcotics at the time of the stop. It was just a misunderstanding of them not being able to be there.
Okay, so but now when you say they searched the vehicle, did the dog alert? Was there a K-9 alert?
Yes, the dog alerted, but she didn't initially get the K-9 out for the burglary in progress. She specifically got it out to do a sniff on the vehicle that they did not give consent her to do.
Okay, but now we do know that generally speaking, as a baseline issue, a case called Illinois versus Caballos, sniffing a vehicle is not in and of itself a search. The issue is going to be, was anybody detained while this dog was deployed, and was their detention extended to run the dog? If that was the case, we're going to need reasonable suspicion. Now, let me just make sure.
No, there was no reasonable suspicion for them to even do a sniff on the vehicle, and nobody was detained at the time. She had information from another officer saying, hey, sometimes they have illegal narcotics on them. But
Amanda, okay, because I think I have the answer here, but let me make sure I have all my ducks in a row. Where was the vehicle physically? On the road? Parked on the road?
No, it was in the driveway.
And whose driveway is that to the defendant? Is it their friends or their?
Yes. So they used to live there. They were coming back to get stuff, and they were coming into the residence, but the resident at the time, they could not get in contact with, nothing like that. So they were like, okay, well, I just came back to get more of my stuff. Okay.
Now, I think the answer to this question is going to depend on the next question I ask you. Okay. When the dog was deployed around the car, are you saying that the defendant, the owner of the car, I guess, right? The defendant, did they feel free to leave? Yes or no?
At that point, no, because they were waiting for CID to arrive. And
CID is going to interrogate them or interview them about their. In other words, go ahead. About the burglary, right?
Yes.
Okay. So why would they not feel free to leave? Just kind of give me some reason to believe. Were there red and blue lights on, or right? Or do you guys use blue lights?
Yeah,
is it blue lights in Mississippi? Right?
Yeah, we have blue.
So you guys had the blue lights on? Were the blue lights on?
Yeah, well, so I wasn't on scene. This is just a scenario that we've had that happened in the last couple days, and I want to make sure that I don't do an illegal search
Correct.
and turn it into a drug case, and then that drug case doesn't even stand because you illegally searched them. You violated their,
The Fourth Amendment rights. But
Correct.
here's the answer is this. The answer is when that dog was deployed, okay, would a reasonable person have felt free to leave? In other words, would they have felt detained? Because the reason why that's important is this. And there's some best practices that are being violated here as well. But the point is that if they don't feel free to leave, then the next question is that dog, because you're investigating a burglary, right? Which they seem to have, they might have reasonable suspicion for it, right? I mean, people calling in saying,
hey, there's somebody on this property. I don't think anybody's supposed to be there. Correct.
yeah. And look, I think the cops would have a right to detain them. I actually have no problem with the detention. The problem is if they detain these guys and then during that detention, they're trying to figure out who they are, which means that you ask questions like, who are you? And they're going to start explaining that we used to live here and so forth. And then the reasonable suspicion is going to start to be dispelled. But the answer is this: if they did not feel free to leave, and running that canine added time to their detention. In other words, while that dog was being run around the car, nothing was being done to confirm or dispel their suspicions, then we have an extension of their detention to run something that's not related, right? The dog is not a burglary detection dog.
Correct.
And that's the
at
problem.
That point, they didn't need to use the dog for the burglary in progress because at that point they weren't in an imminent threat. Like
right, they're not tracking. They're not doing human detection. They're not tracking.
It's not like they ran away from the residence. Correct. And the dog wasn't deployed for the burglary in progress. It was not deployed until she was like, "Oh, I'm going to search your vehicle."
Right. So look, it can be a little finicky, right? But the point is, the point is, if they were detained and that the canine added time to their detention, it's illegal because the dog is not related to the burglary. Now, if they were not detained, we do have to answer the legal question. If they were not detained and they were not, they were free to go, and if the cop was preventing them from jumping back into their car and leaving, then that would be a different problem, right? But running a canine under these factors, if nobody was detained, would not be a problem because A, the dog sniff is not a search, and B, the dog is not on their curtilage. They don't live there anymore. That's why it would actually be okay. And then once the dog alerts, that gives you the probable cause to search a vehicle under the motor vehicle exception. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I was just checking that because the only reason why they stayed at the residence so long is because they were waiting on CID for the burglary, and then that's when she was like, "Oh, well, I'm going to search your vehicle," and they're like, "No, you have no reason to," and then she just went ahead and did it anyways. So that's what I was just wondering.
Yeah, no, I think there's a problem because I think the person was detained. That's the problem.
Yeah, they couldn't leave because they were waiting on CID. At no point in time could they get in their vehicle and leave because they were waiting on CID to show up to address the burglary in progress and then they weren't even charged with burglary in progress. They were just charged with the dope.
Well, look, that's something different though. Again, the outcome does not mean that the initial investigation was illegal. The question is, were they detained and did that canine sniff add time to their detention? If it did, that's the problem. Now, but best practices, that's going to say it. Best practices probably would dictate that they really shouldn't be doing this until they figure out what the hell is going on with the burglary, because it does kind of
it was kind of sketchy. It was kind of sketchy. It was, for me, it was kind of
correct.
sketchy.
It's sketchy. Okay. Okay, good. Jim, I know you have to go, but man, I really appreciate that. Rick, I'm going to send you a copy of his feedback. And then what's Marvin saying? What if they ran a canine while waiting? That's fine. If they were detained lawfully in CID, right? But I do have to tell you though, the one argument that can come up with is that, hey, these officers, even though they're not CID, these officers are still officers. They're still investigators. Are you still trying to actually move this investigation forward? In other words, it's not like we can detain people for an extra 25 minutes just because we don't want to do that investigation, right? Or we're not the best at it. The patrol officers should still be asking questions and trying to dispel or confirm their suspicions while waiting for CID. But if they're like, look, we have no idea what we're doing here. This is we don't know what the train, if they have if they have a reasonable suspicion issue that does not, that they have just they have no idea what to do. I guess they can wait. An example there would be like a terrorism issue where they have to wait for the feds to show up, I guess, right? What are they going to, they're not terrorism trained, so I guess they just wait. Does that make sense? Hopefully it does. Bryce, you're awesome. Email richard@bluetogold.com, okay? And say, hey, give me my book. And no, see, you won't talk like that because you're from Mississippi. You're too nice. Just say, give me my book, please. Travis, let me do your question, but let me just answer real quick, okay? A question on the, this one's kind of easy. So can we compel passengers in a crash to ID themselves? Arizona law requires us to take a crash report for those involved in death, injury, or damages exceeding $2,000. Let's say we respond to a car versus pedestrian where there's visible injury to the pedestrian. Are we allowed to compel this pedestrian for ID on the basis that they must complete a crash report? In this hypothetical, let's say that we have no criminal reason to detain, otherwise charge this pedestrian. They were a true victim. It wasn't like they darted out into the road. We have Arizona Revised Statute 13-2412. It only applies to those lawfully detained. If you're lawfully detained, you have to compel ID. If we can compel ID, then what about identification for passengers of the vehicle? So here is your answer. No. No, 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 okay? We cannot compel victims of a crime to participate in the criminal justice process, right? We don't have to, there's no authority for that. If I don't want to be a criminal, if I don't want to be a victim, I don't have to be a victim. I can just go on my way and be self-insured or whatever, right? So, if I don't want to, go after somebody's insurance. You also, generally speaking, do not have the authority to detain witnesses. Now, I think, and maybe Teresa can search my YouTube channel real quick. I think I have a YouTube video on detaining material witnesses. There is limited authority in law and case law, like there's statutes on this, that allow police to detain, potentially to arrest, a material witness. I want you to think like the witness against John Gotti, right? During the FBI's takedown of the mob, they were not arresting people. They were seizing material witnesses and putting them in jail until the trial came because they were going to abscond. So, yeah, there we go. Compelling witnesses. So thanks, Rick. So the answer is this. This whole stop and identify does not apply to victims of a crime or just, run-of-the-mill witnesses because they're not criminal suspects. And the crash report is not enough of a compelling reason to force people to identify themselves. Now, here's the deal. Can you kind of like be very persuasive? Hey, look, I really need your ID. And they give it over, fine. But at the end of the day, what you're not going to do is you're not going to arrest them. You're going to describe them as best as possible for the crash report. White male, if you have an approximate age you want to throw in there. He says his first name is Jim. Put Jim in the first name. But if he doesn't want to give anything else, it is what it is. Let him go. So I guess that the point is, do what you can on scene to get cooperation. Be a little, assertive. But at the end of the day, do not make an arrest for a victim of a crime. That would be a bad arrest. Okay, so Travis is next.
Can you hear me?
Loud and clear. What state are you in?
South Dakota.
Okay, nice. I'm going to North Dakota tomorrow.
Oh, that sucks.
I'm going to your siblings.
Yeah. So I'm changing things up a little bit. Got a wildlife.
And talk. Your volume's a little low too. So I don't know if you can get closer to the mic. That might help.
Can you hear me better now?
It's a little better, yeah.
All right. So I got a wildlife scenario for you. So say you have a group of guys coming off the water in a boat. You're doing boat ramp checks, fishing, safety inspections, you have it. And the boat gets hooked onto the trailer, pulls onto the dock, and let's say you have PC to search the boat, you smell marijuana coming from it, or one of the occupants that came off of it. Do you now have probable cause to search the vehicle since they're now connected?
Maybe. Let me ask you this. So when you say like the owner of like the person who is the marijuana, I mean, the owner of the truck is also the owner of the boat, right? Of course, right?
Yeah, more than likely.
Yeah. I mean, that's probably right. I mean, I guess what I'm trying to say is I think the answer is yes, right? Because they are connected. And, and generally speaking, if you have probable cause for, for the vehicle, you may also have probable cause for the trailer, right? We know those cases. But if it was just a friend, let's say a friend is a pot smoker, and you really don't believe that anybody else had anything else to do with this, whatever it is, they just think that this one friend is the one, and it's only on his person, it's only in his bag, it was nowhere else in the boat, then I don't think you get into the guy's truck, right? I personally don't think so. But
Is that even if they all rode together on the way there and like he didn't meet up with them at the ramp?
I mean, and everybody's like, no, he doesn't have anything else in the truck. He just has his bag, Look, the way you resolve these issues, right, is the way you analytically try to figure them all out is answer this question. What are you going to tell the judge about why do you think there's more drugs in that truck or paraphernalia? So you had something, right? He rode in the truck. What else? Anything else? He owns the truck. That's probably damn good, right? But let's say the friend. He rode in the truck. Do you have anything else besides him riding in the truck?
Tougher.
Huh?
If it's the friend, it's probably tougher to explain that to a judge other than they rode together. That's it.
Now, what about the owner of the truck also has a pretty extensive drug history? Would that help you?
I would think so. Yeah.
Correct. What if you think that the driver's lying to you about their involvement in the pot smoking? I guess at the end of the day, when you're doing these motor vehicle searches, you are making the judgment call on behalf of the judge. You have to play the role of judge. But I'm just telling you, if you came into my courthouse, right, my courtroom, and you're like, Your Honor, I searched that F-150 and I found XYZ. And I said, why you did it? You say, because a friend of this guy that owns the truck, they were out there fishing, and I somehow found the marijuana on him. And I say, well, do you think they were involved in this marijuana, or just this passenger's friend? Just him, but I also wanted to make sure there was no other marijuana in the F-150. And all you had was that they rode together. I think that's a very thin case.
Sure. Makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome, Travis. Okay. What does John say? However, if you are arresting him for his actions or the boat's location, you'll be searching the truck incident to arrest. Yes. If you are arresting him, now, into arrest, the answer is yes, right? You would have reason to believe that offense-related evidence inside the vehicle. Okay. So let's answer another question. So officer initiates a traffic stop. Let's see where this officer is, by the way. Texas. Okay. So officer initiates a traffic stop. Officers respond to the registered owner's residence and observe the car in the driveway. Since the car fled, this is a felony in Texas, and was located during the initial investigation, can the car be towed out of the driveway? Suspect car, yeah. I would be careful with this. I personally, if I was on scene, I would not allow this because you're playing with fire here. If you think if you think the vehicle is on curtilage, then it is in a safe zone. And the motor vehicle exception, generally speaking, would not allow you to seize the vehicle. That case is Collins v. Virginia, where police officers seized a stolen motorcycle on the guy's curtilage. So in the court, the Supreme Court said that was a violation because there was no exigency there. So if you have exigency, fine. By the way, there are some states that say by statute that they can do this. You got to read statutes in line with the Fourth Amendment. I would be very careful here. I personally would not do it. Okay. I would get a warrant or their consent, but they're probably not going to give you a consent. Does anybody have a question before I answer? Right. Does anybody have a question here? Any more questions? Okay. Let me see what this person has. Jillian. All right. You got a question?
Okay. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
I was just talking about a motor vehicle. If they have Jersey, if I can go through their purse or wallet to find their ID.
Okay. You cut off a little bit, but you want to do an ID search, and you're in New Jersey, right?
Yes.
Well, see, New Jersey overturned. See, in New Jersey, we used to be able to do this, but not anymore. So, so if they don't have, like, so for example, just use the regular rules, right? let me bring up this case if I can here. So if they say, look, I don't have my license on me, I mean, give me an example. Like what? Just want to search it. Like they don't. Let's say they don't have it on them.
Well, right.
Or-
So I have a whole bunch of people that say that they don't ever have their ID on them, but I've never like decided to like go in their purse or wallet to see. You know, if I pull a car over and, you know, they tell me that they don't have anything, or, you know, they refuse to give me their name or whatever, then yeah, I could always arrest them and bring them back to headquarters and like go and do a live scan on them. But I've just never had anyone tell me that they have no ID, and then I decided to just go through their purse to find my own.
Yeah, you can't do that. The case is State versus Terry, New Jersey Supreme Court, 2018. So
Okay.
is that have you heard about that case before?
Yeah. Yeah.
Let me just put it in the chat so other people can look at it, because there's actually a few New Jersey cops here today. But so Terry says that the answer is no. So just arrest them, or if you know whatever, just use regular rules. You know, if you can properly identify them and you feel good about their identification of who they are, I would cite them, right? Just give them their summons and kick them loose.
Yeah, that's what I figured. Okay.
Okay. All right. And then email richard@bluetogold.com.
Okay.
All right. Nice job. Okay. So let's answer this question. So this is a kind of a quick one. If you show up to a welfare check for a possible suicidal person, and upon contact, he makes threats to the police stating he will shoot anyone who comes in the house, as long as we can articulate the need for an emergency detention, can we enter the home without a warrant? What do you guys think about that? What should the cops do in that case? He's alone. Okay. He's all alone. And that's what he says to you. Absolutely, man. Absolutely. We should be walking away from this. This is absolutely ridiculous. I'm sorry. And some people are going to be offended by this, but Anthony, we can save a life. You're probably not going to save a life. You're probably going to take a life. Okay. This is the wrong move here. Marvin says, send in the social workers. I mean, do you at least want to give them a bulletproof vest? Look, you can smoke them out. You can wait them out, but I'm telling you, my cops and you know, and San Diego cops, you know, Anthony and my cops in LAPD, my cops in, you know, in other Las Vegas, they are not pushing in on this. They are eventually going to walk away. Nobody's in danger except himself. Also, I will tell you that in my view, empirically, which means through my own eyes, empirically, I believe that more people lose their lives under these situations where cops push their way in than they would have if we just left them alone for them to contemplate their misery, and they kind of usually get out of it. In other words, less people shoot themselves than them pointing a gun at a cop and doing a suicide by cop. It's much easier for somebody else to shoot you than to actually pull the trigger on yourself. So in other words, the chances are that this guy will have more chance to live if we walk away, in my view. And George is correct. Okay. George is correct. The question, okay, I put my personal opinion in there, and maybe I should have kept it out, but I will tell you that does the law potentially support this decision? The answer is yes. This would be, is there agency to do a civil commitment? The answer is yes. Should we? No, because he's telling you what the outcome is going to be. He's telling you he's going to shoot you, and either A, you get shot, which is absolutely not worth it, or B, he's going to get shot, which is most likely what's going to happen, and somebody's going to die that day is probably what's going to happen, and most likely it's going to be this guy. Leave him alone. Okay, so does anybody have a question? Okay. Let me see here. When serving this is from Anchorage, this is from Alaska. So when serving a search warrant and finding evidence not included on the list of items I'm searching for, I've always been encouraged to amend or apply for a new warrant and add those additional items. That's called a piggyback warrant. Now I understand the need for an amended new warrant, but if additional new evidence located changes the scope of my warrant, that is true. Say, for example, I'm searching a vehicle for something relatively large. Now, in Alaska, they need warrants for vehicles. It's kind of similar to other states. New Mexico and Washington, like a specified stolen property, which would only reasonably fit in a large open area of the vehicle. So it's not going to be in the glove box. But during the search, I find drugs in the cup holder. Now, now do I want to look at new places? Okay, I got it. So look, the answer is, okay, Ryan, cool. The answer is pretty easy. If you are lawfully present, okay, and you find other evidence of a different crime, let's say, for example, you are searching for narcotics in a house, but you had no probable cause that the guy was a prohibited possessor of a firearm. So he's also a felon, or maybe the gun is part of the crime, but you find a gun. Do you, generally speaking, have to stop your search and do a piggyback? The answer is no, for two reasons. Number one is, here, you don't have that size issue. You're going to be searching areas anywhere where drugs could fit. If drugs could fit there, then it's going to include the gun areas, right? It's not like you're looking for something big and you're looking for something small. Here, you're looking at places small and it can include items that are big. However, though, if you are going to expand the scope of that search, you obviously need a warrant. If you find evidence of fraud, like a fraud lab, and now you want to look for credit card machines and financial records and so forth, then you want to download phones because of this fraud investigation. You're going to need a piggyback warrant. So that's the answer. Again, in the car, this situation would not be an issue for most cops here, because if you're searching a motor vehicle and you find other evidence of a crime, you keep on searching it for that evidence because you have the motor vehicle exception. You don't need a warrant. Guys, thank you so much. I appreciate you. Teresa, if you're still here, if you can just blast out the social media links one more time. Everybody else, thank you so much, guys.